Okay. All right. We are live. So Charles has been patiently waiting for me to get my situation figured out because I haven't used StreamYard in a while, folks, and it's just blown up on me. So my video is choppy, but my audio looks good. And Charles looks great. So that's all you guys really want to see anyway today, right? You just want to see Charles. Welcome, man. It's been a long time, and I'm glad you're finally here. Unfortunately,
Oh, it's been a long year already, and we're just in February, man. There's a lot of shit going on. It's great to
there's
see you, Crypto Crow.
there's a lot of shit going on, and last time you has it been a year since we talked on
I
stream?
believe so. Yeah, I think it's been about a year since I was on the show, but I think you're just paying me back because I had an episode I came on, and I was driving back from the ranch, and I had the choppiest internet in the world, I think.
Yeah, you were in your car, and yeah, the video, audio, everything was really choppy. So I guess this is my revenge, unintentionally. But we made it. We're here. We're live right now on YouTube and Twitter. And man, there's so much to go over. Now, you and I chat here and there, nothing crazy, but we've had a pretty good relationship through the years. And to start things off, I wanted to point out something to everybody that I'm not sure people really fully understand, as to what kind of guy you are, right? Because you're obviously very open online, and you share your thoughts and your perspectives and things. And some people like to troll you, that most of them are just bag holders of other blockchains. Let's be real about it. But I sent you a message once about what was happening in North Carolina, and I pointed out that they were struggling and that they were having a lot of helicopters and things being turned away. And I sent you a link, and all you said was, "I'm on it." And what was it? Less than a week, dude, you sent your fucking Black Hawk to North Carolina to help the recovery effort over there?
We got it done. We got it done. Yeah, I sent the Black Hawk out there to North Carolina, and we had a great time. It was a tough time though, because the guys were getting their asses kicked. They were operating 12, 16-hour days, 7 days a week, and they flew hundreds of people and generators and water and all kinds of stuff, and paid for it out of my own pocket. What really bothered me was FEMA was just nowhere to be found. They were just nowhere to be found at all. They had their camps set up. They were 40 miles, 50 miles away from where everything was, and they didn't give a shit. And so it was all private industry that came in, and state responders and other people, so the local police and firefighters and paramedics, and they were wonderful people. They did a great job all the way through that process. And we learned a lot, and we did a one mother of all after action reviews. And in the process of doing that, we said, okay, we'd take a step back and kind of use this as the basis to talk about how we're going to do ops in general. So I think every year we're going to go to a disaster zone, have a medical corps from my clinic there, and then we'll also have yeah, our security detail there, keep everybody safe, and then obviously the pilots, and that's a good setup. And I'd like to go there as well. I was abroad, so I couldn't get there. But Don Jr. came up on the Black Hawk, and a lot of senators and other people flew on it. So it was just a great opportunity to get to meet people and get to know people, and everybody really cared.
It floored me. I was yeah, everybody knows me. I'm a little over emotional sometimes, but I was telling my wife about it, and it was just such an important thing and such a big deal. And it was just kind of a testament to your character and just your willingness to to just be the change, man. And I was hearing a lot of things about FEMA, and at one point I think there was even a couple, one or two helicopters that came down above the camp and just blew everybody's supplies all over the place, and then took off, and nobody understood what they were doing or why they were doing that. And apparently supposedly they were FEMA helicopters, but I still don't know 100% to this day. But anyway,
Well, yeah, they were guard helicopters, and that is understandable because what ends up happening is that you run these guys 12 to 16 hours a day, and there's really poor communication, and people aren't coordinating because there was absolutely no leadership on the federal side by design because they wanted to prevent people from voting who were Republican in North Carolina. I'm firmly convinced of it. Just everything in the Biden administration take the worst possible interpretation, and it's probably even worse than you think. But because they're not coordinating basic things like where to go, where to get fuel, if a landing zone is cleared or not, where people are at, sometimes you just don't know. And if you're a guard guy and you've been flying for hours and hours and hours and hours, and you get to a location, you're told you're supposed to land there, and then you have to pull up because it's not a landing zone and they marked it wrong. Your recourse is you have to fly all the way back. And in some cases, you maybe fly a little too close or you get a bit frustrated with that whole thing. Because remember, these guys, they probably didn't sleep for 2 weeks straight. It's just 4 hours here, 5 hours there, super stressful, injured people, dead people, and you're getting yelled at all the time. A whole bunch of things you want to do, you're not allowed to do it. Everybody's stepping on each other's toes. You're getting chewed out by everybody, chewed out by your chain of command, chewed out by firefighters, chewed out by police officers. Some cases, the locals hate you because they think you're doing bad stuff, and so they shoot at you.
Are you
And then
serious?
yeah, it's just bad shit, man, all the way through.
So you don't think that was intentional at all? You just think that it was just kind of an honest mistake?
Yeah, it happens all the time, because Blackhawk is blows it's like it's like a giant fan. It just blows
Mhm,
everything around. With Black Hawk helicopter, we landed at once in Gillette, and we had to get approval from the mayor, and it was kinda like one of those Hollywood movies where, like, the little kid's pointing and his baseball cap flies off his head.
mhm.
That's what happened when we landed in Gillette for July 4th, and it's just so much wind comes from that. So, when we knew we were landing there, if you're in a really difficult situation and you're coming by and, you shouldn't have done it, the guy probably got reprimanded, but it's a minor thing. And also, what exactly are they trying to accomplish?
Right,
Like, they go and blow a few things across, so it's some grand conspiracy of, like, we're gonna go and harm these people. If FEMA wanted to get rid of those people, they have the legal authority to move them. So they could have just shown up with guns and said, "Get the hell out of here." So
okay,
instead, they're gonna, like, be so petty, they're gonna send a Black Hawk helicopter to blow a few things around, and then people were drama queens about it. They're like, "Oh, they destroyed all these supplies." Really? Like a little bit of wind destroyed all your supplies? You guys were like, what if that happens if there was a rainstorm? What happens if there was a gust of wind? All the supplies are vulnerable out in the open. You're that incompetent that you can't pack those things down. It's like, come on, let's be real. It's just one of those things where it's a powder keg and everybody's angry, everybody's stressed. They knew that FEMA was not carrying the load, and they knew that a lot of bad shit had been going down. And so, anytime people saw anything at all, they immediately latched on it. They got extremely aggressive, and they pushed it through. What was really shitty, though, is just our internet, the Twitter sphere. They never give you the benefit of the doubt. People knew my Blackhawk was there, and the minute they heard about that, it's just all these people showed up and blamed me. It's
right.
like, okay, so I'm flying a National Guard helicopter Mike model built in 2010, not my Alpha model built in the '80s, without a tail number as a civilian aircraft. Really? I'm flying a military guard helicopter without a tail number that's 2 generations ahead of my Alpha model. Yeah, okay. You know nothing of this shit, but just go to Twitter and attack me and say that I'm a bad guy with
It's
no evidence.
amazing.
Yeah.
Anything anybody can do, there's always gonna be some naysayer, some troll, somebody that was some smart ass thing.
Yeah.
And, I was trying to keep up with a lot of it, but it's just one thing gets debunked, then they just come up with something else. But I just wanted to point it out because it was just such a big deal. It was a big deal to me, and it was just a big deal to the people there. And I just wanted to say thank you. And I've seen some comments in the chat already, people that live there who are like, yeah, thank you, Charles. So just know, man, that you did a really big thing. And a lot of people are appreciative of it. You don't get the credit you deserve in a lot of fronts, man. I mean, you don't. Unfortunately, the world is so divided politically that I think you could literally cure cancer tomorrow in one of your labs and people would have some nasty shit to say about it.
Yeah, and my biggest problem is I just don't get the benefit of the doubt. That's the thing that bothers me, I think, that more than anything else is the fundamental lack of the benefit of the doubt. Any event, any piece of news people hear, a lot of people immediately just clutch at pearls and they're like, "Oh, well, Charles is the worst human being in the world, and obviously he did all this stuff. He stole this money or he did this thing or this. I don't know what's going on, but it must mean Charles did something wrong." And then when it turns out that they're wrong, what do they do? Do they apologize? Do they say, "Hey, I got it wrong. I feel real." No, some do, but the vast majority don't.
You
And,
just go on
if
to
this
the next
keeps happening, you get pretty fucking bitter about it
thing.
over time.
Yeah, I understand that. But dude, you're changing the world, man.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to Cardano, governance is live. I'm a politician now,
You're in
man.
charge now, Jason.
I saw your AMA the other night where you're like, if somebody messaged me and talking about their voting power, and he's a little concerned that it was too much power. And I'm like, yes, Charles, I know. It is true, because I saw that and I'm like, man, this is kind of freaking me out. Like, is that too much power for one person to have, or what? And when you break it down, I guess it's roughly a little less than 3% of the total vote. So it can make a mark, but I guess it's not the end of the world. I should probably calm down. But you welcomed me to blockchain governance and being an elected official. So I guess I'm an elected official for the first time in my life.
Yes, sir. And what's great about it is you get an opinion on all the big things. We got 3 big things coming up. First, there's Constitution. People are already talking about it. More than half the stake that's live is already voted for it when you get that 75% threshold. So that has to happen. A lot of things are occurring there. But I do believe we will get there. Second, we have to get the product roadmap of Cardano figured out. And that's a big one. So we published a roadmap alongside Intersect. And a lot of people are debating and discussing that. And third, we got to get the budget done. That'll probably start around March or late February. And how that's going to work is a lot of people are going to come together. Intersect's going to publish a budget. Probably the foundation's going to publish a budget. And there's going to be a big consolidation step. So the D-reps are probably going to form a working group. And this is something you guys have to decide how you want to do it. But you'll have a lot of best practices and principles and contradictory demands and these things, but they all have to be put together to an up-down vote at some point. So we imagine that the first 2 weeks of March will be super drama, and then it'll die down a little bit, and people start coming together, and eventually we'll get to a budget being ratified as some consensus of the masses. So what's really cool about that, though, is then we've kind of tried all levers: fundamental rights lever, very strategic lever, which is the roadmap, and then very tactical, which is the budget. How do you execute these things? And so we kind of know how these pieces are basically going to come together, and we have a framework upon which to improve them. So right now we kind of have impromptu workshops and some other stuff, and that bootstrapped everything. But now we can set a formal process in that's a bit more inclusive for these things long term. And I think that's how we'll get it done for 2026.
I was just checking my governance page today to kind of get an idea. It's like anything new, anything coming through, and obviously the Constitution is a big thing, and all of these new changes. When you say a lot of drama, what do you expect exactly? Like between the D-reps themselves trying to come to some sort of conclusion as to how to move forward with things, or is it, you think, in what way do you think that's going to happen?
Well, I think the drama will come from fundamental misrepresentations. So people will say, well, the budget's been proposed, and thus what they're saying, this is Charles Hoskinson's budget, take it or leave it. No one has any say or input into it, and you're going to be railroaded and destroyed by it. And the only purpose of the budget is to pay for IO because IO's out of money, and they need this, and we have to do this. That's what they're going to do. And they're
I
just
see.
gonna bark and bark and bark and bark and lie and lie and lie, and say, "Okay, well, did you join Intersect at all?" "No, it's a bureaucratic, evil organization captured by Charles Hoskinson." "Okay, well, did you participate in the budget committee at all?" "No, it's bureaucratic thing, evil Charles." "All right, well, did you prepare a counter budget, and start talking to D-reps about that?" "No, because the whole system is rigged for Charles Hoskinson." You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
That's what they're gonna do, and, nothing you say will change how they feel because they're not living in fact-based reality,
Right.
and they're not thinking about the ecosystem, and they're not thinking about all the pieces that the ecosystem needs in order for the ecosystem to be successful. You see, the thing is that you have the development and you have the ecosystem. So the core development is the strategy. So do we want Laos or not? Do we want rollups or not? Do we want Midgard or not? Do we want to continue refining Aiken? Do we want to continue refining Plutus? Do we want more language diversity? Do we want formal methods in our languages, et cetera, et cetera? And that's a lot of deeply technical stuff. And then E, the ecosystem side is, do we want to pay the annual budgets of some of the people that provide core infrastructure like Tap Tools or Dex Hunter or whatever, or partially subsidize them? Do we want to subsidize the wallet makers in Cardano? Do we want to put money on the table for marketing? If so, how much? Blah, 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 all this type of stuff. You put those two sides together, you start forming a strategy and the tactics upon which to execute that strategy. IO will not be the lion's share of the budget after it's all said and done. And we're doing this as a basically showcase what our expenses are for what we do. And we're not going to make a profit on that more likely than not. In fact, we'll probably lose money given that ADA is coming down and we're taking ADA at a risk. So, people are going to say a bunch of stuff, but that budget, the DREP's job is to think about, what does this mean? Have we left some people out? Have we Do we feel it's enough? Is it too much? Do we feel it's sustainable? Do we think this is going to grow the ecosystem or contract the ecosystem? And do we feel that this is going to make Cardano competitive or not? And every DREP has an opinion. And after that 2 weeks of drama subsides, they realize that just being against something is absolutely meaningless. You have to be for something. You actually have to have a vision and a strategy. So reconciliation is that you're going to see a lot of different budget artifacts be proposed, some very comprehensive, some not so much. And basically, they have to take those pieces and put them together. And I'm more than happy to help facilitate that. They could be at the ranch, they could be at University of Wyoming and Laramie and come to the office here, go somewhere else. But a lot of people are going to put things together. The biggest DREPs are going to put some stuff together. And in-face meetings are always preferable over meetings that happen over the phone. But either or doesn't matter to me, because at the end of the day, it's got to get approved. And we have to ask some strategic questions and philosophical questions like, do we want to continue funding Catalyst at the scale that we're funding? Or do we want to draw that back? And if so, how much? And how do we want to change the funding mandate of Catalyst? That's one of the biggest questions. And also another big question is multi-client. There are now 4 projects that I know of that are credible and really strong that are building diverse clients in the Cardano ecosystem. So we have obviously the Haskell node, and everybody loves that one or hates it. But then you have the Go node from Blink Labs, you have Harmonic with the TypeScript node, and then you have TX Pipe building the Rust one. And a lot of people want client diversity. Okay, well, if you want it, pay for it. And the budget that Intersec's proposing, I believe, has that line item in it. But there are many, many, many other considerations. Like, do you want 24/7 implementation for Laos? So I told Jer and the other guys, let's put a package together so that devs never sleep for Laos. Once the prototype is done, 24/7. So you actually have 3 shifts: day shift, night shift, mid shift, and they work the weekends too. So shows the urgency of that to the community, because a lot of people think we need that to catch up. Okay, same for Midgard. Make it a first-class citizen because they have 15 developers. They're ready to go. We're incubating them. Same for Bitcoin DeFi and these other things. DREPs are going to ask naturally questions like, what does this mean? Is it too much? Is it too little? Do we feel comfortable with the oversight here? Like Patrick Tobler brought up the idea of using smart contracts to dispense the funds. We can do that. When the budget comes out, it can go into a smart contract if people want to take the ADA. They want stable coins to be paid, let's say USDM and USDA, because they don't want the volatility risk because they can't afford it. That's fine too. What you do is you just convert the ADA into the stable coin, then put the stable coin in the smart contract. And then the governance keys for that smart contract in terms of stopping payment can be held by the audit and oversight entity that's checking that the work was done appropriately. And at the end of the year, any money that's left over the smart contract that's in ADA can be swept back into the treasury. That's a capability Treasury has. We're trying to expand. I'm advocating to expand the treasury function to also accept Cardano native tokens in the treasury. So then you can actually donate USDM and USDA into the Cardano treasury as well. So you could do a complete sweep there, and it never touches an entity. It's 100% smart contract based. So these are the conversations we're going to have. And they're hard because we've never done it before. But when you put them all together, what will end up happening is that all of those will eventually turn into a system. And then year by year, we just follow that system, continue to refine it and iterate it. And it's going to be a shit show for the first 6 months to a year because everybody's wants to vent about stuff that should have been funded for 5 years. And I couldn't agree more that should have been funded.
Yeah, I obviously there are a lot of things, but it's one of the cases I used to make all the time because a lot of people would always complain about Cardano's marketing and it's just, what do you do when you're trying to build a truly decentralized platform for the world? You could stand there and dictate all these things, but then it just kind of negates a lot of the idea behind being a decentralized blockchain that's operated and ran by the people. That brings me to one question though: how are you feeling about these AI DREPs that have been popping up?
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, you're gonna have every type of DREP under the sun. You're gonna have multi-sig, you're gonna have special interests, you're gonna have DApp associated, stake pool associated, you're gonna have double dippers that are in the Constitutional Committee and they're DREPers. You're gonna have human and non-human. You're gonna have nation states. You're gonna have institutions like universities. That's the magic of it. And what's so cool is we don't actually know ahead of time who's gonna make good decisions and who's gonna make poor decisions. So you let the diversity of all these things come. And then what you do is you hold all of them accountable to KPIs and you say, are they regularly participating in governance? Are they voting in a timely manner? Are they engaging in productive, meaningful dialogue or destructive dialogue, et cetera, et cetera? You can just kind of work your way through all of that. And over time, what happens is you get to kind of a sweet spot where you say, this is roughly what we look for. And then you set up an internal decorum for these types of things. So AI is cool. AI is getting really advanced, and where AI can hold people accountable is that it never forgets anything. And also, it can be very objective if it's constructed the right way. So I'm excited to see all of it, and it's going to be pretty crazy when you think about it, all the moving pieces and all the people that are there. But overall, I think we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I find it pretty interesting, and I actually just I debated a federal investigator, former federal investigator, at an Intersect North meeting. Was that last weekend or the weekend before? And it was a good time, and I actually got to meet some of the Intersect folks here in Florida, as well as one of the original IOHK Haskell developers. So I got to talk to him. He posted a picture of us, and everybody was joking about how he was so little, but he was a good dude. And I met a lot of really cool people, and I think I'm going to start doing something on a regular basis
Right.
here in Florida because I want to get to know these people. And honestly, it helps to just kind of understand what the rest of the world is thinking behind just the retail investors and speculators. You know what I mean? Because that's typically who I'm always talking to. And so I really want to start getting a better perspective from the people that are building and the people that are really doing things. There's one thing that I would actually brought up at this Intersect meeting, and it was kind of a joke, but it's not really a joke. When you look at the way this is all taking shape, and we're looking at everything that's happening politically right now with it, just everything. One of the concerns that popped into my head is lobbying. Is there who's to say that somebody doesn't create some sort of lobbyist group to push for changes that may benefit them specifically? Is that something that's like a null concern, or is that what are your thoughts on something like that?
Well, lobbying for DREPs or lobbying the government to do stuff for Cardano? Like what?
No. I mean lobbying D-reps. Like I can see because I think back to when I first started my YouTube channel back in 2017. As soon as I hit 50,000 subscribers, you start getting people offering you all
Yeah,
kinds of things, right?
I see. I see.
And I'm thinking,
Yeah,
okay, so now we've got all these D-reps with growing voting power and somebody that wants funding for this or that. And, I could see
yeah.
that being a thing. How do we weed that shit out?
Yeah, you can't. So all of politics is pay to play. All of politics. Always will be, always has been. And I proved that when I showed the menu. It was like all these people were bragging about going to the inauguration and all the cool stuff they were doing there. And I was like, well, let me show you the menu. And I actually publicly posted it. And it shows you for each price level which experience you get to get. Meet the cabinet for this much, dinner with this person, et cetera, et cetera. Oh my God, Trump must be so corrupt. No, actually, that's pretty much how we've always done it.
Mhm.
And that's how it works in the executive branch. It's how it works in the legislative branch. And that's why your key is an aggregation of diverse interests. So if you are building something on Cardano and you're attracting a community, you should be biased. You should be biased to promote and protect the thing you're building. You're doing good by your community. You're doing good by your financial interests. If I ask you to act in any other way, I'm like denying reality. It's just doesn't make sense. You what you do is you say, well, let's get that guy to be part of a members based organization and a DREP, but let's also get their competitor to do the same. And then those pairings, if you put enough of them together, you actually average out, enforce compromise, enforce transparency, and slow the system down enough that no one party can co opt it and cause issues. biased is not something you get rid of. It's something you manage by parity. You actually find other people to come on in. And then I think that's how you get it done. And then the other thing is by having diverse governance systems. So we have a tripartite system. We have DREPs, Constitutional Committee, and SPOs, and they're all very different, and they live differently, and they do things differently. One is very responsive and very political. It's liquid democracy. It's the fastest part of your feedback. It can be changing on a daily basis, your power, where the others are elected to terms, and the other ones are connected to actually performance of what they do in the ecosystem. And that's just the beginning. With Minotaur coming in the horizon, we can add more voting systems and more resources upon which to vote. And so you actually get a more diverse governance set. And institutions help regulate things because institutions take complexity and turn it to simplicity. The budget's a great example of that. Really complicated to get hundreds of millions of dollars, put all these ideas together. But once somebody's done it, the answer is yes or no.
Mm.
So institutions take that and grind the meat, get it done, and they get you to yes or no, as opposed to, well, what do you think? Oh God, I don't know. Yeah, let's add this in or let's take that out. I am just not that creative. I don't know. So it's balance of power is really the key to do those things. And best practices conform, ethics protocols conform, and sometimes they're effective, sometimes they're not effective. But remember, we don't have the barrel of a gun or law enforcement on our side. So we can't use those standard punitive measures that people use. And even when you do use them, you're not supposed to trade against the American people. But look at Nancy Pelosi's stock trades.
Mhm.
Even when you do use them, no one is above the law except for Hunter Biden when he gets an 11-year pardon.
Mhm.
you know, or this the other issues, Mitch McConnell and his stuff, or pick your favorite boogeyman that you want to look. So doesn't seem to be very effective. And if the guys who are spending trillions of dollars and run the world can't figure it out, I don't think we're going to be able to come in and change human nature. You have to change it with radical transparency, on-chain decision mechanisms, and checks and balances, and pairings are the way to do it.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize some of the most powerful people in the world are political fundraisers. I
Yes.
happen to know one. You know her too. I don't think you know that we know some of the same people, but yeah, she's been doing it for years, and man, the stories, very interesting stuff. But yeah, money makes the world go round. Obviously, it happens in politics, and I can't take my eyes off of Elon Musk's feed anymore. Just every time I look at it, it's just another big blowout, like holy shit moment. And it's hard to even understand that this is all real, and it's just the veil is being pulled back. Um, how do you propose? I'm curious, how do you propose attracting more D reps? Because I feel like to some extent it's semi complicated in nature, in the sense that there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things coming to fruition right now, right? A lot of things coming together and being spelled out, broken down. But how does Cardano overall attract more people to want to get involved as a D rep, and not just basically looking at, those of us on Twitter or YouTube or the people that they're most familiar with, and just saying, well, I'm just going to have them handle it and then be a part of it? How do we inspire other people to want to become D reps themselves?
That's why economic incentives are so powerful, because if it's civic duty, it's really hard in practice to get that 24/7 all the time. But if you're talking your book for your ecosystem, whether you're an NFT project or a meme coin or DeFi application or a wallet maker, whatever, basically you're talking your business. So instead of doing indirect lobbying, where you go and hire a lobbyist who, in a shadowy way, goes and talks to lawmakers, what you're doing is just doing the opposite. You just become a lawmaker, and then you fight for your interests. And that's what lawmakers are supposed to do. You think about it, it's like, is the Congresswoman Hageman from the state of Wyoming, did she really wake up every day and say, how do I get better water and less fires in California? No, she's there for Wyoming. She represents Wyoming. So she's going to go and say, like, how do I stop the wildfires in Wyoming? How do I get our fair share of water? How do I get this and this and this? She was elected by the people of Wyoming to represent Wyoming. So D reps are much the same way. So become a D rep and do that. And the incentive is quite strong. Usually it's you're talking your book for your project. So it becomes a natural extension of your business activities for the project that you do and the ecosystem you belong to. And if you do that, it's sustainable because it just becomes part of the budget and people are always there and it's going to be well maintained and well regulated, I think. And it's the same. You have you're part of the influencer economy. You have projects that you're deploying on Cardano, like Workroom and others. And those projects, I would imagine you want to see them commercially successful, and I'd imagine that you'd want to see the product roadmap written in a way that it will bring net more customer opportunities for you. It'd be pretty shitty if you spent all this money and this time and this effort building stuff for Cardano, and Cardano's not fit for purpose, and you can't get adoption. Also, what if you want to go raise some capital for it? It'd be pretty shitty if there's no connection point to venture capital or other capital sources because Cardano has a bad reputation or there's just that bridge hasn't been built. So as a DREP, I'd imagine you'd sit there and think about your own interests and say, like, how do I make sure that this budget and this roadmap aligns Cardano with things I need to get done for me to make money and for me to be successful? And that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. If anybody tells you otherwise, they're, "Oh, well, no, you gotta think about the greater good and all this other stuff." Yeah, you will for 15 minutes, and then you're like, "But what about all the people I've hired? What about the millions of dollars I've spent out of my own pocket? What about all the things that I've done? What about my family? I want to take care of them. I want this to be successful. How the fuck does Solana launch shit that instantly goes to $1 billion and we're sitting at that 10 or $100 million range? And what happens when I want to go get listed? I got a token and I want to get that listed. How come this budget doesn't cover, getting listed on Binance or Kraken or something like that and getting that stuff done? We got to cover that because I want to get listed. I want to do that. By the way, what's good for you just so happens is good for the vast majority of people building things on Cardano as well. It creates use and utility. And if you're successful, what are you going to do? You're going to bring users to Cardano and
Right.
value to Cardano. You're going to build that ecosystem up. That is mutual partnership. And we've gotten so used to this pure tyrannical priestly notion that everybody in politics has to be a saint and pure and never ever think about their own interests and be self-sacrificing and at any given moment go get nailed to a cross, that we just completely forget that humanity doesn't work that way. So the most effective governance systems are systems of mutual interest. You see that in the standards bodies, you see that in business partnerships, you see that in military alliances or these types of things. Even people who seriously don't like each other can get along for a greater good. No greater example in human history than the United States allied with the Soviet Union against the Nazis. Not exactly like peanut butter and jelly, okay? These guys did not get along, but we fought with them for 4 years, because we had an enemy and a mutual interest there. So mutual interest is there, and for some things, you're completely aligned, and for other things, you are mortal enemies and hate each other. And the key to get around all that is diversity. You need a lot of people in the room. So we just need to get more projects to recognize that they need to step outside of being a project and become a DREP and be part of that.
So basically, what I just gathered is I got to go read Nancy Pelosi's book so I can learn how to be a profitable politician on Cardano. I'll learn
Yeah.
from the best.
No, you just gotta ask yourself, what's Cardano missing? And then you use that as your KPI, when you look at the budget and when you look at the roadmap and these other things. That's my advice to any DREP. You're involved in either you've bought something and you're part of a community in Cardano, or you're involved in building your own project on Cardano. In either case, you can solicit feedback and say to the people who've delegated to you and to your own book, what are we missing? And a lot of people come to me, they tell me everything. Hey, Charles, we want a higher TPS rate. All right, yeah, okay. Well, we know how to do that. And we're going all of the above. And the budget currently reflects that. And the product roadmap currently reflects that. And then other people say, well, Charles, we want more interoperability. Well, that's the partner chains framework. It's literally going to build bridge infrastructure with everybody. And the most important partner is Bitcoin. So we're adding special stuff just for them. Okay. And other people come and say, Charles, we want more liquidity. I said, I agree with you because I have a Cardano native asset too. It's called Night. That's midnight. It's on Cardano. So if you can't get listed, I can't get listed. So obviously we have to figure this out. So, well, there's $20 million of integrations and infrastructure for our ecosystem that should have been done 3 years ago. They were not a priority for the people who were given the money to make it a priority. So you know what? We're just going to pay out of our own pocket for that. Because we have to get that done. I would have loved a budget process to exist to do that. And if I was voting on a budget, although I don't vote on these things, but if I was, I'd be like, that is something we must do. We got to get on Fireblocks. We got to get on BitGo. We got to get on Copper and these other guys, because those custodians are the back end for all the tier 2 and 3 exchanges. So if you're not on them, you can't get listed on them. Okay, and we need more market makers. We need more liquidity. We need stablecoin strategy, and not go give Circle $27 million. No, the stablecoin strategy needs to be that we take care of our stablecoins incumbent in Cardano. We have four of them. We should take care of them. We should actually mint a lot and get people to use them in various DeFi applications, and maybe put a percentage of the treasury into it. And then get these guys listed, get these guys cross chain, bring them to Bitcoin, and make them some of the first stablecoins to hit Bitcoin with principles. By doing those things, then you build that base out and you create more resilience inside the ecosystem. So these are kinds of things I advocate for, just from hearing everybody talk to me. But obviously, other people have different things. If you're building a client, probably the number one issue for you is client diversity. That's the number one issue, because it creates a market for what you're building and the years of effort and labor that you've basically put in to do that. So where is that reflected? And it has to be balanced, and D-reps have to kind of think about that balancing act and say, do we have it or not?
This when you're talking about the stable coins, a part of me wonders how much of an impact, obviously, when the Bitcoin OS stuff, was announced, and then, there was the situation with the, why would you use your own token? Why wouldn't you use a Cardano native asset token? And you said, well, okay, well, we're going to do it this way. You do it that way. And then, we're just going to come up with a different way of doing this, regardless of who. So you're talking about May for that. And obviously, the stablecoin issue, liquidity things that everybody's always buzzing about. How much of an impact do you think once these systems launch? Don't you think it would behoove other people to start driving more adoption into the current array of stable tokens on Cardano? Like, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, do we really need groups like Circle and their kind of regime of what they're doing? I personally don't think so. I'm one of the few people, I think, that don't think we need Circle, and I don't really like the way that they operate overall as a whole. And it just gives me the heaves. Everything that I read about them and the way they operate, I'm not down with. And I'm not convinced we need them to achieve a level of liquidity in a stable token.
Yeah, we really don't. We don't. Because you have atomic cross-chain swaps, you have wrapped assets. If there does need to be eventual reconciliation settlement Circle, it's just a transaction fee, but you don't need native issuance on Cardano to make that work. There's plenty of ways to make that work, if we had to go through their pipes. But I say, let's just build our own pipes. That's what Ripple did with real USD. It works. It's a little expensive, but it's cheaper than actually paying these guys. And furthermore, even when there was a willingness to pay them, they still fucked with us.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine a company so arrogant that somebody comes to you. Okay, let's say you're running a company, Crow Coin. It's like you're the new USDC. And I come to you, I say, Jason, I want you to integrate your thing on. And you say, all right, well, pay me 8 figures of money and also guarantee that a bunch is going to get minted. And by just being in your ecosystem, you're going to make passive revenue, $30 to $50 million a year from T-bills. And I'll do all the work, literally all the work, meaning we write all the code and everything. You just push the button to launch it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you say publicly, it's not in your strategic interest to do that. I mean, what the fuck kind of business are you running? If that, and this is literally what happened with these guys. And how that's not monopolistic cartel behavior, my lord, it is extraordinary. It's anti-competitive, it's cartel behavior, and it's just who they are. But here's the thing, if we give you the deal and it actually goes through, it's even worse, because we tell the Cardano ecosystem, you D-reps are in charge. You constitutional committee members are in charge. You decide what version of Cardano is the real version of Cardano. But then there's a shadow government who say, well, if we have a fork and there's 2 versions of it, well, guess what? We can't have 2 of our stable coin. There can only be 1. Otherwise, it'd only be worth 50 cents on the dollar. So we got to make a decision. Are we with chain A or chain B? So if 71% of all your economic activity, and that's what it is with Ethereum right now, is in stable coins, basically Tether and Circle get to decide what the real Ethereum is. And that can be 99%. The B is 99% of the population wants B, but Circle and Tether can decide A, and that's the one. And same for liquidity, when you talk about the exchanges. So, that's the danger of welcoming these vampires in. Once they're in, they have total control, and they get to decide. And it's how the regulators can capture a cryptocurrency ecosystem because the stablecoin issuers have no choice but to be completely subservient to the banking industry. If
Mhm.
they're not, they lose their correspondent bank relationships and they go out of business. If they're not, they can't buy treasuries. And if they're not, they'll get their assets frozen. If they're not, the US government will arrest them as regulated entities. So there's never going to be a case where they can take a principled stand. They will always take whatever they're told to do by the regulator, the government, the banking cartels, always. So if they get the kill switch and they get to control the legitimacy of who's a real cryptocurrency or not, it is kind of interesting then when you look at it from that lens, which cryptocurrencies they're choosing and which ones they're not choosing. It's telling you a little something about how the people who really run the show are thinking and where they want the cryptocurrency industry to go. And they seem to think that Ethereum is
Decentralized
totally
chains.
fine.
I look at it kind of like a war between, because anytime I see Cardano being snubbed by any particular group, they're generally more interested or have a vested interest in some of the more centralized blockchains.
Yeah.
And I can't help but wonder why, like, how are these, like, who are controlling these organizations to keep that direction? And what is it exactly about something like Cardano's decentralization that poses such a risk or a problem for them? And I think to some extent you just kind of spelled that out.
Yes. Yes. And not a lot of people think about it because they think stablecoin means number go up. Stablecoin means my tokens go up. Okay, great. Well, guess what, guys? I can give you a sack of silver too, and it just tell me where Jesus is at.
Mhm.
It's sometimes the money's not worth what you give up for it.
Short
And
term,
we
short
we
term money
we
for sure.
yeah, we paid a lot as an ecosystem and bled a lot to get to become the most decentralized cryptocurrency in the world. And now that we're here and we're on that side of it, let's be honest here. Do we want to sacrifice all of that just because we want 20, 30% appreciation of ADA? Algorand minted $300 million worth of Circle. And did that do anything for them? Where they at in coin market cap? Does it really give you what you think it's going to give you? We're
No,
above Stellar, and the Wyoming stablecoin people accepted them. So you got to really think it through. And the magic of Cardano is it's just like Bitcoin. It kept its principles, and we found a way to be programmable and updatable with principles, and that's one of the biggest innovations of Cardano. Everything else is organic growth. If it takes us 5 or 10 years to continue to grow to match the ecosystem of Ethereum and Solana as of today, what's the rush? It'll be there. And what, we're just gonna fall apart? No, we'll have 10 times the population, and we'll be 1,000 times the speed, and we'll have all these amazing capabilities. If you doubt me, look at 2021 at the end of the year. You were there. We all remember it. Sunday Swap wasn't exactly the best user experience at the beginning. And that was unfortunate. It wasn't their fault. It's just where the ecosystem was at. Took a while for shit to settle. Suddenly, I can install a wallet and I can go from nothing with Lace Wallet to in 20 minutes using my credit card to buy $100 worth of ADA, go through KYC, take that ADA, connect it to 3 different DEXs, buy meme coins with all 3 of those DEXs and stable coins with all 3 of those DEXs, and then send them to DeFi applications. And everything settles in less than a minute. And that's just a few years' time. And, if we keep this rate of progress, Hydra will be connected, Lightning Hydra will eventually be enabled, Bitcoin DeFi will be enabled. We'll have privacy with Midnight. We'll have thousands of extra capabilities that work their way through and a big GameFi play as well. And that's within 24, 36 months. And our transaction finality will be the best in class with Ouroboros Paris. It's already designed, it's already in implementation phase. And we'll be the fastest cryptocurrency without sharding with Leos next year, after you get done with the prototyping. So everybody's like, "Oh God, you gotta get it done, or else you'll just die." It's like, well, yeah, we've been at this for a long time. Cardano's been in market for almost 8 years now, 7.5 years. So we're pretty good at it. We're gonna be here tomorrow, and we're gonna keep growing tomorrow. And really, you just got to focus on those first principles. Keep the decentralization, keep the governance growth, keep growing the capabilities. No, don't violate the first principles thinking. Continue to embrace the scientific rigor. and continue to improve the user experience, and you'll get there at the end.
Well, now that you're involved politically, and you can see you've got kind of your finger on the pulse a bit, I'll say, uh, politically with everything in this kind of new administration, this pro crypto adoption. I mean, hell, the president has the freaking meme coin now. I mean, like, it's getting a little crazy, but um, I'm curious, do you think that what can you say about the climate and the understanding of those in power now with this new administration as it relates to centralized blockchains and the nature of decentralized
Yeah.
blockchains and where we're going to start going? Like, what can you say about any of that that's happening right now?
So there's never been a better time to be in the cryptocurrency and blockchain space because the appetite for what we sell is stronger than it's ever been. You have a government agency mandated with cutting the budget by $2 trillion. And what they're doing is they're unveiling all the horrors of the federal government. It's almost like when we took over Iraq and we saw the secret dungeons of Saddam Hussein, or the French took over Spain and they saw the horrors of the Spanish Inquisition. So you got Elon going and seeing the treasury payment system and starting to look into all the spending of the government. And they say, "Oh my God, this is just out there." Like just today comes out that NIH, I guess, gave around $50 million for grants to Wuhan, to a bioweapons facility, our government, to do gain of function research on bat-borne coronaviruses.
And the guy ended up
Probably
being
we
the patient zero for the whole
Yeah.
thing, didn't he?
Yeah. And
Mhm.
so that's just what we know at the tip of the iceberg. What the hell are we gonna know in a week or 2? So once you start unveiling all of that, you take a step back and you say, "Well, how do we never do that again?" Extreme transparency. And you go from don't be evil to can't be evil. The only system we've ever invented that has that level of transparency and oversight is blockchain. So it's not if, but a when. And it can't be centralized because what? We're gonna go trust these institutions? Like, what's the American people's trust in the FBI right now, or the CIA, or any government bureaucracy? Even Fish and Game at this point probably has some PR problems. Everybody hates the government. That's why Trump's president. So you can't trust the government, but you need something that acts like a government. Your only option's a blockchain at the end of the day. That's the only option you have. So this administration, whether they like it or not, is going to be the administration that blockchains the entire US government one way or the other. The voting systems, supply chain systems, banking systems, payment systems, you name it, we're going to blockchain it. And it's an all of government approach. And we as industry, we're working closely with the administration. And when they wake up fully, because they've only been in office for less than 2 weeks, signed hundreds of executive orders, are dealing with a lot, they're going to put the full weight of the U.S. government behind blockchain adoption. And all of us are kind of coming online at different times. And poor Dave and Bo, they got the world's hardest job right now. They got to keep everybody happy. It's like the impossible job, and they're going to take enormous incoming from the political left, because the left knows that if blockchain comes in, it's game over. There's no more Nancy Pelosi insider trades. There's no longer Zelensky saying, "Hey, by the way, you sent us 175 billion, but we only got 75 of it. We don't know where the 100 is."
Mhm.
There's none of that garbage anymore. We
Blew
actually
my
know.
mind when I saw that.
Yeah.
It's amazing how any of that is a real thing. And like you said, man, I mean, we're only a couple weeks in. I can't even imagine what every month is just going to be like a new holiday.
It's been crazy. Oh my god, like 300 executive orders a day. This Trump is the most productive president we've had in our lifetime. I've never seen the pace. I mean, every agency, he's just going at it. He's just doing it. And he's picked some great people, good friends of mine like Robert Kennedy, and Roberts just tearing it up. And I already told him, hey, if the senators vote against you, I'm with Nicole Shanahan. I'm going to help primary some of those guys because it is not okay.
Yeah,
It's absolutely not okay what they're doing. And the same for Tulsi Gabbard and others. They deserve to be in the cabinet, and
she is
they'll
going to be
get
the
there.
first
It's going to be
female
tough, but they'll get there. And then they're going to do a lot of damage to the deep state.
and I love watching it because it's about damn time. And I really do believe Tulsi Gabbard is going to become the first female president.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
just no
she's
question. I
great.
love her.
She's what should be the first female president. She
Hmm.
served her nation in war. She's articulate. She came from humble beginnings, small town congresswoman. She was betrayed by her own political party because she had integrity. She stood up for Bernie Sanders against Hillary Clinton, got crushed for it. By the way, Bernie may actually vote against her, which is just insane. It just shows you who these people are on the left and how much loyalty they have for people. Imagine that you run for president and very few people support you, and the person who supports you loses her career in your political party for it. And then when she goes for DNI, a job she's qualified for, you vote against her on partisan terms. If
Hmm.
you're on the left, do understand something. They eat their own.
Right.
They really do. And they have no loyalty or integrity at all. And yeah, as much as you criticize Trump, ask yourself how comfortable you'd feel as a Democrat. You're always looking behind your shoulder because somebody's coming to put a knife in your back. She's articulate, very smart. And the other thing, she's humble. There's the tale of two politicians. There was Tulsi Gabbard versus Ron DeSantis. All DeSantis had to do was shut the fuck up and endorse Trump. That's
Hmm.
all he had to do, and he'd be Secretary of Defense right now or be in the cabinet, and he would be, one of the favored to be president in 2028. Trump may even endorse him. Could have been VP, but instead he ran against him. And Trump was responsible for DeSantis being governor. He actually was the one who pushed him over the line when it was really competitive and got him in there. So where was the loyalty there? DeSantis thought that Trump's brand was damaged, because of January 6th, so he went for it. And he's a young guy. There was no urgency. There was no rush there. He should have been loyal. And that's why everybody turned against him, and his political fortunes have been crushed. And he might be able to come back at some point, but where's Mike Pence? Where's Pompeo? Where's Liz Cheney? Where are any of these people that have been on the other side of it? You get steamrolled. Trump's a force of nature in the Republican Party. And the number one rule in that party is, you got to stay loyal to the big guy, and or else you're going to get steamrolled.
I just think it's too difficult to deny. I mean, some of the most hardcore people who have been indoctrinated into this. I can't help but see a lot of people think I'm right or left or this or that. And the reality, like I didn't like Trump with the meme coin stuff. I don't like who's in charge of running that stuff for him personally.
Yeah.
Um, I did some digging on that. I haven't done a video on it or anything yet, but I mean, I'm not sure that I'm going to. But I'm like reading up on these guys, and I'm like, man, it's basically like Andrew Tate, launching meme coins for Trump at this point. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, does nobody clue him in? When does this new crypto panel, this policy group, when does everybody start cluing him in on shit he shouldn't
Yeah,
do?
but, the thing about Trump is that he does a lot of good, but he does a lot of harm at the same time. It's a bull in a china shop.
Hmm.
It's a tale of two tariffs. So, the tariffs on Mexico were a stroke of genius. The tariffs on Canada, it was a bad idea. And here's why. So, in the case of Mexico, the whole point of the tariffs was to get massive concessions to aid in our war against the cartels, building of the wall, the deportations, and a lot of our foreign policy objectives in Central America. And they already caved. The Mexicans are deploying 10,000 troops to their own border to
Canada
work
just
with
did
our.
too.
Yeah. But, when you look at Canada, here's the problem. Trudeau was on the way out, and they were just about to have elections. And the conservative parties, which are all pro Trump, were favored to win. By levying tariffs on Canada right now, eh, what's going to happen is they're going to disrupt the politics of Canada and create a very strong anti America Canada push. And 5-10% of the population will vote for candidates who are anti America, who are left wing. So this actually might put Trudeau's party back into power. And it just makes no sense at all because if the conservatives had gotten elected, Trump would be negotiating with people like Milei, who philosophically agree with him. And all he had to do was just wait a few months for this. Are we really getting a ton of money? And also, what concessions are we currently asking from the Canadians? 43 pounds of fentanyl went from Canada to the United States versus metric tons that went from Mexico to the United States.
Right.
It is just a very different situation. He just wants some concessions on natural resources and military stuff and these other things. He's trying to do too much too quickly, and that's the bull in the china shop.
Right.
So it's the same with the crypto stuff. He puts David Sachs in, and he puts Bo in, and there's a lot of good in there. Then he launches stablecoin 2-3 days before, excuse me, meme coin 2-3 days before it comes president. Not probably a good thing to do.
Mm-mm.
So
I mean, it was a clear message,
yeah,
but probably not the best message right from jump.
yeah. And what's really sad for me is like if I speak before Congress, which or Senate, which is probably going to happen this year, we're just working on the times. every question I'm going to get from a Democrat is going to be Trump coin, Trump coin, Trump coin. Every
Sure.
question. It's not going to be bipartisan frameworks. It's not going to be what's good for America or consumer protections or, all the real stuff. It's going to be crypto equals Trump and Trump equals scam. That's what they're going to say. And it just takes all the air out of the room, and it doesn't help us at all to move forward. I also disagree with the AI czar being both an AI and crypto. It made no sense to me to combine both those roles together. They're fundamentally different things at their core. There are certainly intersection points, but they're fundamentally different. They require different people and regulatory structures. So it creates some complications because we have a part-time crypto czar, and this is a full-time industry. It's a multi-trillion-dollar business. We got a lot to do, and I'm sorry, AI is even bigger, and there's a lot more going on with AI. That's full-time plus plus. You can't do both, and so you're going to have to let one suffer for the other, and unfortunately, that's going to create some problems too. Are they unsolvable? Or is it like we can't do it? No, it just means you have to put more delegation and you have to kind of negotiate a little bit more around the edges. So instead of getting it solved in 60 days, we get it solved 90 and 120 days. The one thing I like is that the administration is absolutely crystal clear on what they want to do. They want America to be the best place to found, fund, and run a cryptocurrency business. Absolutely clear. Okay, that's the mandate. So if it takes 90 to 120 days to get there, it takes 90, 120 days, but we're going to get there and we'll make it happen if the industry has a seat at the table. And compare that with the Biden Harris administration, which was we want to destroy every single crypto business and launch CBDCs. This is the contrast between the two. And if you're on the political left, then, ask yourself this, where's Ross Ulbricht right now? It's promises made, promises delivered. Every single thing Trump said he was going to do for the cryptocurrency industry, so far he's done. The Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, he promised it, he's working on it. Pardoning Ross Ulbricht, he did it. Set up a crypto commission with an all of government approach, he did it. Okay, that's promises made, promises delivered. He's a bag holder in cryptocurrencies now. He has a financial incentive for our industry to work its way out.
Oh, he's
So
definitely put his money where his mouth is for sure.
absolutely, absolutely. And so I'm sorry, this is just objective reality. You may hate the man and have a distaste for the man, have Trump derangement syndrome, think everything's a lie. But objectively speaking, over the last few weeks, every single thing he said he was going to do when he spoke at David Bailey's event, he did. He said he was going to fire Gary Gensler. Tell me, is Gary Gensler at the Securities Exchange Commission? He still had 2 years left on his term. Is he still there? No, he's gone. Gary's at MIT doing the walk of shame.
Where he started. Yeah.
Yeah. The truffle shuffle. So I when Trump says something about this, I actually believe him. Yeah, that he's going to do it. And do I believe it's going to be perfectly executed? Probably not. But sure as hell, a lot better than what we had. At least we have a seat at the table as an industry.
Right. And when you're when you just get sworn into office and you make a gazillion actions literally with your first breath, it's not possible for everything to be 100% perfect. A lot of the transition into kind of a more pro stance in terms of all these things, I think is going to kind of help get things better. Like
Right.
you said, AI, crypto as one kind of complete package, that's definitely not going to last. That's going to split. That's going to become, two separate entities, I think, at some point. And you should definitely check. Canada did just submit and basically say, okay, yeah, we're done. We're whatever you want. So, and I know we're getting 10,000.
Yeah, but he could have pulled
troops from
that card
them.
at any time, right? So wait for the elections to be over so the right-wing guys are in, and then when you pull that card, you'll get an even better deal, and you might not even have to pull the card because they could just see what happened to Mexico and use them as the poster boy. Same for Panama.
The only other view I might have is, did he not do that knowing those things because he's using those two scenarios as like, listen, to anyone else that wants to challenge me, like let's just not go there. Maybe there's a different reason. I don't know. I'm not as deeply political, I think, as you are, obviously, but I do think that there's a reason for everything, and I'm not necessarily sold on the idea that I think he's talking about throwing tariffs on a lot of different people, and I think in some ways he's basically trying to make these folks the poster boys of what his new efforts are going to be. So
Yeah. Well, tariffs also make sense from certain economic outcomes. I mean, when you have an American steel manufacturer and one in India or China. And in America, they got to pay for union employees, expensive power, expensive diesel, a lot of safety regulations, a lot of environmental regulations, and fundamentally expensive real estate. And in India, they get free power or government subsidized power. Their wages are one-tenth of ours and no unions. The environmental regulations are significantly more relaxed. All things being equal, free market, the Indian steel will be a quarter of the price. So how does that American steel mill compete? And if you say, well, just no tariffs at all, well, then what that translates to is the American steel mill goes out of business and all those people lose their job. And do we feel comfortable with all of our strategic interest industries going out of business? We saw that with chip manufacturing. We invented the transistor. We invented the computer and the IT revolution and the internet and photolithography and all these other things. It's not like we just discovered it from Japan or something. It's like we invented this industry and we let all of it go to Asia and we paid for it. And then suddenly we say, oh God, how do we get these chips back? And then when Intel goes and they're the donkey, they try to build the fab facilities, government stabs them in the back. Again, everything the Biden administration was a lie. CHIPS Act, they told you how great it was. Where's the CEO of Intel right now? Tell me, what happened to him? He got fired for trying very hard to spend $50 billion to build American chip manufacturing facilities. That's how anti-business that regime was. They're like a scorpion. No matter what you do, they're going to sting you. So how do we get that back? They say, oh, well, we can't tariff TSMC or these other guys. Well, we leave it open. How does an American business compete with somebody who already has a $100 billion incumbency advantage and 80% of the world's supply? And also, they get much cheaper access to the rare earth metals and the chemicals required to do the photolithography and actually make this integrated circuits. So how do we compete with that? Like 90% of the world's supply of rare earth is in the Chinese orbit. Tariffs are your only option if you want to create a domestic industry there. And, this is kind of funny because in Trump derangement syndrome is on full display. The Republicans were historically the free trade guys, and the Democrats were historically the pro-union protectionists, protect the American job, blue collar guys. Like who did NAFTA? Well, Bill Clinton did have some involvement, but the first side of it was the Reagan Bush side for that. And now because everybody hates Trump so much, all the Democrats are free traders. It's like, oh, we just can't have tariffs throughout the whole world. They'll say, well, they'll make prices go up. Well, it'll make American consumers start buying American goods. That's what'll happen because the American goods will be cheaper than the goods from China or
But if the
Canada.
prices are going up because of some of these tariffs, but inflation is put in check better,
Yeah.
which effectively will lower some of the prices while the jobs, I mean, there's so many different layers to this. If you put it all together effectively, in my opinion, what I would expect to see is a much better and a much stronger U.S. economy that's benefiting everyone in society, not just, a lot of the people at the top. So I just don't, I think that a lot of this stuff they're going to be questions answered through the end result. And I think once people start seeing the end result, then maybe they'll stop questioning every decision made.
And you also got to understand, like, if you're going to blow up the U.S. economy, now's the time to do it. And Trump's got to make that decision. So every president, they live two facts of life. One, you're going to have a recession sometime around or during your term. It's just going to happen. Sometimes you get really lucky and the recession happens right as you leave office and you're in your second term. That's the Bill Clinton thing. And sometimes you get really unlucky, like George H.W. Bush, where the recession happens when you're running for reelection and you go from 90% approval rating at the close of the Gulf War to it's the economy stupid and Ross Perot and Clinton knock you out. But that's going to happen. That's your first reality. And second, if you are a Republican, you will be blamed for everything, even the things you didn't do. And if you're a Democrat, the media give you a full pass. Democrats just never get blamed for anything they do on the economic side. Bipartisan, if you print money, you get away with it. Both Republicans and Democrats can print money like crazy. So Trump, if he's going to blow up the U.S. economy, create a recession, now is the time to do it because we'll fully recover for it by the time the midterms come in 2026. The economy could be quite strong. They have unlimited political power right now. Everybody's on terms. You can go do that. So that's why he's front loading all the stuff, the bad medicine, the big government cuts, and the tariffs and these other things, it's going to hurt the stock market. You see that with the crypto markets. But here's the thing: after 6 months to 12 months, that bleeding's done. They call it eat like a bird, shit like an elephant. All that stuff's done. And then once it's done, you get to the other side of it. The economy actually looks really good and dynamic, and all the numbers look great in 2026, just in time for the midterms. So that's why there's some urgency behind this trade policy of what he's doing. He's front loading it. Most presidents are damn scared to front load. They're like, I got a honeymoon. I got all this political power. I can't go blow up the economy. It's like, if I was president, that's the first thing I would do, you know, because then in 2 years' time it's over, and then you get to get your reelection and you get your midterms and all these other things on a boom economy, which means you keep your gains, and everybody says you're right. And that's what Milei did, by the way. As soon as he took over in Argentina, he blew up the economy and everybody lived in hell for 6 months. They said, oh, he's the world's worst leader. Now Argentina has a surplus.
I
Now
know. I saw.
Argentina has massive direct foreign investment, all this stuff. When we talk to him, he's like, I'm pretty smart, huh? We're like, guy's a fucking genius.
Right. Well, I'm actually excited about everything. And at some point when I know you've got some important meetings coming up at the end of the month, and I know you can't say much about it. It'll be very exciting. I'm very curious to see how your cheese ball. I'm excited for you, man, and I'm very excited for all of the implications that I think you have going on could mean, not just for Cardano, but for the crypto space overall. Is there anything that you want to say about any of that before I let you go back to wherever you came from, whatever you were doing before this?
I will say this. I said publicly, I will never take a meeting just for a photo op. If I'm going to meet with somebody, it's because the meeting, the circumstances, the environment, all of these things are appropriately set up where we actually get some work done and we can have a real conversation. It's why I didn't attend the inauguration. All these guys that go to the inauguration, they're wearing their tuxedos, and they got like Mike Tyson and Jake Paul together giving each other piggyback rides. It's a hell of a lot of fun. And I sent 10 people. JJ went and other people went, and they got the photos and they had their fun, and they got to, get to meet people, and that's good. But if you're going to meet with like a big guy, like the president or Elon Musk or the vice president or, a treasury secretary, whatever it is, it's not okay to meet for 2 minutes, shake a hand, take a picture, move on.
Right.
Got to have dinner with them. Got to sit down for an hour or two. Got to have a real conversation. And there has to be a dialogue there where they actually care about what you think and that. So I've been very strategic about some of these meetings, and I let everybody do their photo ops and move their way through. But now the honeymoon is over and the work is starting to be done. Tomorrow, David's gonna go and have his press conference, and he's got a lot to say, and people are going to be blown away by it. He's gonna go and get it done. And Bo is not too far behind him. He is a fired up guy. He's an awesome guy. He's got that North Carolina spirit. So they're going to start moving hard. And the president deeply cares about this issue. He promised us that cryptocurrencies were going to be a first class citizen, and that America is going to be the best place to found, fund, and run, which means he's personally involved in the decision making in the meetings. To have the president of the United States personally involved in these things, texting people, talking to people, that's a big fucking deal. And that means it gets done quickly. So we're starting to get those gears turned on, and we're starting to get these things done. January was the wash because everybody's just so focused on the inauguration and all the fights. I mean, even if you want to take crypto seriously, you got to get your crew. And right now, his crew's being held up in the Senate. It's waiting on Tulsi and RFK and all these other people. Just barely got Hegseth in. It's tough. But once that crew's in, then you're ready to go. You got your heist movie. You're like, you son of a bitch, I'm in. Let's get it done. So he's almost through that. And once he's on the other side of that, towards the end of the month and coming months, I think you'll see that the Trump administration is going to really start moving quickly, including getting legislation passed. And the wheels are already starting to turn there because people have been activated, to do these types of things. So, we as an ecosystem, because we're in the top 10, we have a role, as does XRP and as does the Bitcoin ecosystem and the Ethereum ecosystem. And the rivalries and the grievances, they've been set aside. And now we're in a different world. And now we're operating on a level of let's get this fixed. There's a lot of problems. Let's get it fixed. And there's so many bad things that happen. Operation Choke Point 2.0, all the lawsuits against XRP and the allowance of Ethgate and all of that shenanigans. The weaponization of OFAC and other things against the crypto people. What happened to CZ? He deserves a pardon. What happened to Roger Ver? He deserves a pardon. Okay,
I saw
it's
that
not
Roger Ver
okay.
video. And I wasn't always a fan of him, but the more I learned about him and his circumstances and how like the fireworks thing and just how silly a lot of that stuff was, and I'm like, leave the guy alone, man. Just let him do his thing at this point. So yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, 100%. The U.S. government's so fucked up where they're like, oh, okay, well, we'll let you rescind your citizenship. You can disappear and live in a different country for 10 years. And then we're just randomly, on a lark, going to come back 10 years later and say you didn't pay taxes to the country you rescinded your citizenship to and try to put you in jail for life. That's the U.S. government in a nutshell under Biden. It's an egregious thing. So we got to fight for a pardon there. We got to fight for that. Unfortunately, it'll take a little bit of time. Ross was front line, but I think we can get there. And
I think it'll happen.
yeah,
I think
we got
it'll
to get
happen.
it done.
Mhm.
So that's what I want to say to everybody. It's like it seems so dramatic, but just keep the faith. We're gonna win. Bitcoin's gonna be $250,000. Cardano's best days are ahead of it. We succeeded in Voltaire. We have a full on-chain government. I know that because right now, Jason has more say over what happens to Cardano than I do, Charles Hoskinson. And that if that tells you anything about decentralized governance and our embracing of that and our confidence in what that means, that tells you how powerful this model is and where we're going. And we're not shut out. We were shut out by nepotism and corruption in Wyoming in the short term. What that means is, as I said in my live stream the other day, it's like chasing the fat guy who's all oiled up. I got to put my cowboy boots on and go kick some ass. But you know what? I'll go do it because I'm going to catch the fat guy. We'll win. And all the other fat guys, the competitors, you think we'll catch them too. We'll win. It just take a little bit of time. So keep the faith. Don't let the markets get you down. Don't let the short-term bullshit get you down. Just realize that when you widen the aperture and you look every 2-3 years and you compare where we're at today versus where we were at then, we keep moving forward. And people are just going to be blown away by where Cardano's at the end of 2026 and blown away by where Cardano's at by 2030. And then the worst fucking part is going to be that everybody will say, I told you so. Yeah, I always believed in you. It's like, oh, fuck you, man. You did. You know,
That's
they
coming.
always do that. They always
Of
do that. Oh,
course.
no, I always knew. I always did. I don't know. I don't
Mhm.
know when we were behind, in the fourth quarter, you didn't feel like a fan then. You were getting up to go warm up your car.
I will say, guys like Alex Becker, he's been coming around. I mean,
Yep.
it's some of the biggest haters on Cardano finally said, you know what, you just can't deny this thing anymore, man. Like, and I've always looked at Alex Becker as kind of funny because I've been aware of him since the SEO stuff he was in years and years ago,
Yeah.
and I love his crypto personality. I think a lot of it is stick, but I think it's hilarious. And there's a lot of people turning around. So I mean, it's better late than never, I will say. But I know I hear what you're saying. There are going to be a lot of people that are going to start coming at you, and especially as a lot of this stuff starts to, I don't know how to say it, but when things become more and more revealed over time, I think
Yeah.
people are really going to start taking more notice.
Yeah. But what the fuck are they gonna do? Like, is there gonna be another Lara Shin book? What more can she say? It's like I murdered orphans in Cambodia. Well, what you got? What you got? It's like I'm like the bath mat now, Jason. It's like it's oversaturated with water. You can't get it any more wet. There's no more water going in that bath mat.
Right.
They have blown their load. They've said everything they're going to say. I'm a narcissistic sociopath monster who has no technical skills and is the world's worst leader, and nobody likes him. Can't partner with anybody. And at the end of the day, I'm just Johnny fucking Live a Lot. Still in the top 10, yo. Still here. Still fighting. And for some reason, people seem to like me. Go figure. And so the Charles derangement syndrome aside, there's nothing they can say or do to change the reality of what's coming. Because you know what? I took myself off the chessboard. Unlike Vitalik, who, when shit hits the fan, he's the person who goes to Twitter saying, I will decide who staffs the Ethereum Foundation. I will pick the leaders, and by extension, the entire future of Ethereum. So where are the checks and balances there? Who can fire Vitalik there and that foundation?
Well, there's always been a bit of a question on Ethereum centralized kind of nature, especially when things started happening with MetaMask and the way people were being blocked off by location. You know, there's just a lot of weirdness that's happened over the years with not just Ethereum, but others. And the type of stuff I can't see happening with Cardano.
And you know, contrast that with me, where I don't even have the power to get the fucking Cardano Foundation to sponsor the Constitutional Convention. It's in their best interest to do it from a brand and politics thing, but they won't even do that. So obviously, we're on different sides of the aisle there, man, in terms of decentralization versus centralization. And you know what that translates to? Cardano's going to win because it's not a person in charge, it's the people who are in charge. And if we don't do it right the first time, we're not going anywhere. We'll fix it. We'll figure it out. We'll put those pieces back together. So keep the faith. And I love coming on your show. I love talking to you, man. It's sorry the live stream's not working so well. I always miss the facial expressions and these things. But,
yeah, you know, I'm going to get this in check probably by next year when you come on again.
Yep. And, you know, it's going to be a great month, February. We had a little bit of a shaky start, but that just got all the paper hands out. And now that we're on the other side of it, you know, it'll be a good month. And a lot of good stuff is going to happen. And, you know, before you know it, the Constitution is going to be ratified. Before you know it, the budget's going to be ratified. And then we're off the horses. And every year we're talking about the next year, you know, and it's like that football thing. The playoffs, talk about the playoffs. So we'll get there. We'll get there.
We're going to get there, man. You have so many people with nothing but faith and just everything you've been doing through all these years. You know, we're all appreciative. We're all grateful, man. Don't let the trolls and the haters. And I know you don't. I know you don't let them mess with you. I think if anything, you probably get a kick out of them, kind of like the way Elon does. So yeah, man, I do appreciate you coming on. And of course, obviously you're welcome anytime. And I definitely got to get this StreamYard thing figured out. And sorry, folks, for those of you guys watching my video, it's not my internet, it's my video situation. I don't know what happened, but anyway, Charles, thank you very much. And you know what? You really did change my perception as to my role as a D-Rep a bit. So I will thank you for that, because I've been a little nervous, you know, like what do I do with all of this? And so, you know, now I know I just need to read Nancy Pelosi's book and get all the tips I need. I'll be good to go.
Yeah, but you know, that's the deal, right? And then it's honest. Yeah, that was my contribution to the Cardano Foundation. I made them honest actors. They hate me. They hate IO. They've always hated us. And we haven't exactly felt so nice about them. But, you know, by publicly getting into the spat, now they can actually be who they really want to be, and they can express themselves, and they can go out there. And lo and behold, since the criticism came, you got Fred Gegard going everywhere on Sundays, taking pictures in front of the Circle building. He's meeting the Claymates people. You know, he's talking to projects. He's like, let's go Cardano. They're fighting, right? They're hiring community managers or getting involved in governance, you know, because that's how you get it done with bureaucracy. Go kick somebody in the ass. And when you kick them in the ass, they actually get off their ass and they get shit done. So I'm glad to see that they're actually picking themselves up a bit. Still hate their governance model, but you know, that ship sailed. But you know, that's the thing. That's what holding people accountable is about. You fuck up as a D-Rep, don't worry about it. The ecosystem is going to hold you accountable for that. And if you want to come back for a second dose, you can earn your way back to where you were, or you can decide maybe it's not for you. And it's an experiment for all of us. And I spent years and years and years in the saddle, and I took every criticism, fair or otherwise. It was my job to be that meme with the soldier with all the arrows in his back, you know, protecting the kid. That was my job, you know. And now we got a new group of people, and they're a lot stronger than me, and a lot smarter than me, and a little bit more patient than me too. Because I think people are getting tired of my politics, and they're getting tired of my viewpoints. And some people love me, but there's people who are on the other side of it. And every time they hear me speak, they just hear, whoop. So I need to move on, you know, and I just need to focus on building on Cardano and getting things done and getting adoption and these types of things. That's what we're doing. We're getting her done.
We're getting her done.
All right.
Well, Charles, man, thank you so much. To you guys that joined us live, thank you for joining me and Charles. And until next time, crow your coins, and we'll see you again real soon.
Thank you, sir. Cheers.
Cheers.